There's two legislations in particular that are very close to my heart. They're all close to my heart, but one is something that was just passed, and it was signed into law in Illinois. And I passed it as working on it as Director of Advocacy and Policy for the Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition. And what it actually does is that it creates an option for mediation for individuals, for kids that have been bullied on campus, on school grounds, based on their ethnicity, their race, their disability, all the different categories, their religion, that's identified by the Illinois Human Rights Act. So now when you're bullied and you have a child that's been bullied in these categories, a parent can actually say, hey, that's fine that you have detention and suspension, but the reality is my child needs to navigate these spaces. And so we need mediation. We need to empower the victim, and we need to educate the bully to change relationships. And so I feel like we're giving opportunities for children to learn how to embrace and appreciate a diverse community. And I just think it's so beautiful, and I want every child to feel that they have the ability to not be scarred by words that have been said. And recently I came across cases where kids have committed suicide because of bullying, because they didn't have the tools, right? So you can suspend and you can separate them. That's great. I don't want to take that away from anybody. You can separate them, you can say go your own way, but you can't just brush it under the rug. You have to find ways to empower and have this conversation, these difficult conversations with these kids who not by choice are around people that are different. Because when you get older, some people gravitate towards people who are like them. Schools are the only opportunity where you get to be with people who are different like you and different than you and see commonalities. So I'm very proud of that legislation, because I feel like it gives opportunities and it gives children the ability to own their space and articulate their power. And the second one is there's another bill written for the same organization called Inclusive Athletic Attire. And that was because we kept coming in our community conversations, we kept coming across girls of different faith groups, and especially Muslim girls, who chose to dress modestly because of their faith. And they were not able to participate in sports. And we're talking about fantastic athletes that Illinois, just didn't get to see. And so, so for them to be able to go on that court or go on that track and say, I'm just as athletically skilled as you, and I want to practice, I want to create this camaraderie, and my uniform does not make me less athletic, which is true. We saw it on the Olympic stage, right? Where women are like, enough, please respect us for our athletic skill. So I think giving the girls and all kids, not just girls, anyone who wants to feel comfortable in their uniform and still play, we have that now, right? And we got so much feedback from all faith groups that were saying that, gosh, we don't like the volleyball uniforms. We got messages from women's groups that said, like, because they saw kind of like the early sexualization of female athletes as well, so there were so many different groups that understood that athletics is a place where children really feel like part of the community, and for them to be shut out because of a uniform is just so sad and unnecessary. So I'm excited about both of those for kids. Yeah. Well, here's the question a lot of people ask me, and that is how I see the world, how I see it, meaning I'm very open to different ethnicities and different cultures and different religions, and I love to introduce that to my children. And I would say the reason why I have this appreciation is when I grew up, my parents never casually, not even casually over the dinner table, made any jokes about ethnicities or cultures or anything. They just never did. And I'm sure they had experiences of different sorts with people. I'm sure they did. But they never identified those either. Because sometimes what parents can do and say, listen, be careful, because, these type of people or this type of profession or this type of background, or right? So because we want to protect our kids, or we want to teach them what we've learned. And so my parents never did those things. Everyone was a wonderful person. Everyone was a blank slate, and I got to experience everyone. on face value. And so I think because of that, I was very open. I was not carrying biases or baggage with me. So I think it's so important for parents to understand that what you say and how you talk about other people, and even if it's just a joke or if it's just us, where we don't mean anything by it, it always does mean something. It always does mean something, and I think that it's so important that learning and embracing diversity in the rich world that we live in, kids can only get the most of it if that's introduced at home. That humility is at home. And so I think that's really, 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 really cool, and I would say, like, this plays a lot in different dynamics where you can go into a situation and assume what the other person is feeling or thinking. We hear that a lot, right? We hear about, like, oh, and I'm not saying that there is not discrimination. I'm a civil rights attorney, so please don't get me wrong. But I'm saying when you enter every interaction, you got to take a pause. Somebody might be just having a bad day. Somebody might be tired. Somebody may have just had a loss, right? Somebody may have just had a loss. So there's so many things that go into a person and a dynamic that we have to really think about how to just get to know people as people. Get to know people as people, and give people chances to change their mind, change their mind about things too. So I think that really makes a difference. I want to say that parents really teach kids how they embrace the world. And right now, I would say in the last 5 years, we've heard so many stories of kids getting bullied based on their identity in school, so much stuff being said, so much stuff being done that didn't come out of nowhere. The kids, there were some things said and on some dinner table in some casual party that parents didn't realize that kids would internalize and take seriously. And we just can't pass the buck on that. We're raising members of society. So I think that's important.